just a total limiting of self. So the more we can remain committed, if it's that morning walk, that breath work, that meditation practice, if it's this morning I just don't feel like it. Notice that it's I don't feel. Notice the feeling, accept the feeling, and move beyond the feeling. Because that's when some of these greatest natural dopamine hits and stronger neural pathways get created. Do the work no matter how you feel. We're going to answer today the question of, give clarification around why moods are terrible life coaches and why there's a hidden cost of waiting until you feel like it to take action. I'm Coach Jason here with Alcohol Free Lifestyle. I'm joined by Coach Matt. How are you doing, good sir?
I'm doing wonderful. Summertime, Jason. I'm hanging out with one of my best buddies here. I'm doing some podcasting for a wonderful community, wonderful group of people. Things are going great.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Well, this has been showing up in my life lately of do the work no matter how you feel. As I continue to expand, I'm over at 5.5 years alcohol free now. And it's not like these things of resistance necessarily go away, but I've definitely become a person that engages more in the clarity around the importance of taking action as opposed to waiting for my mood to be the thing that'll give me action. And really, it's got so much to do with the fact that when we're consuming alcohol, we're really working our reward system backwards, right? Yeah. We have a feeling, something arises, we want to escape, we get an excessive, unnatural amount of dopamine flooding neural pathways due to the alcohol consumption. And we really, train our reward system into it. Why it can become, that waking up in the morning and going, I don't want to consume alcohol today. By the end of the day, the stressful day, and we come home, it's the witching hour, and we repeat the exact behavior that we promised ourselves we weren't going to do. So it's so incredibly important that we continue to do the work no matter how we feel, because the way the reward system's naturally meant to be is action. We take it. We get dopamine hits after we take the action, as well as the importance of delayed gratification around it, because we're not meant to be constantly flooded with dopamine or any neurotransmitter for that hormone, for that matter. We're not meant to constantly have oxytocin, serotonin, endorphins, GABA. I mean, there's a long list we could give, but I'm just going to stick with the dose: dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphins. And how important those are, and especially early on in the alcohol-free journey, as the reward system, nervous system start to get rewired and really function in the way that they're meant to. That's why, I've said to some of the members here, I just don't want to feel broken. It's like, you're not broken. You just programmed your mind, your nervous system, and reward system to work in a certain way. Now it's just unraveling, and it's like, oh, wait a minute. Oh, yeah, this is the way it was supposed to go. This is the way it was supposed to happen. Right. Discomfort on the front end, a whole heck of a lot of reward on the back end. Mm-hmm. So it's important that we take action and understand that the dopamine hit is going to follow.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, a lot there. Yeah, you nailed it. Great setup. One thing that I've noticed with members too, and this is why it's great to do this as a community, as a group, is I think a lot of people start to fall out of awareness of like where they're getting dopamine from because of their reward system being so up, down, all around, right? Like the massive spike. So depending on what study you read, it's 4x to like 10x spikes of dopamine that you get from alcohol, right? You're only going to get this from like drugs, right? And alcohol is a drug. Let's call it what it is. So then you get to see this, and I've seen this. There's people that, as they go through their 90-day program, really start to recognize on, day 70 or day 80, they're going, I thought everything was so flat, and then they start to realize it's been there the whole time. It's recalibrating and it's coming back. And then one time they just sort of wake up. It's a lot more subtle, right? Because again, it's not like pew, huge spike, huge deficit, battle back, huge spike, and then it starts to compress the further on you get in your AUD, experience, right? But the point being, like you say, it's just like it feels so much better and it's so much more sustainable because you're like, to your point, you're working for it. It's natural. It has like this subtle, soft, gentle curve. That's, guess what? It's a lot more sustainable as a result as well. Yeah, and then you can really start to really play with it, right? Dopamine is a very playful, it's anticipatory. You get the peak of your dopamine is before you get what the anticipation is where you're at your peak, and then after that, it's starting to soften back down, right? Some of the other neurotransmitters you're talking about are the neurochemistry of like the dose, right, that you're talking about. Those that can be like you get the reward right away, the feel good brain chemistry when you're working out, the endorphins and oxytocin if you're hugging somebody is very instant, but dopamine is more anticipatory. So how can you leverage that, knowing that, right? Planning a trip. Like I know you guys plan lots of trips, so there's some like wonderful anticipation about that, isn't there? Like you're using visualizations, you're writing things down, you're planning your trip. Like that is dopamine right there, right? And then the curious thing is too, and I imagine your trips are amazing, but sometimes when you get in there, it's like it's not as as sustained wonderful. There's still going to be, I mean, because it's life, right? You're going to be burnt out some of the days and be like, holy crap, we've done too much too soon. We packed everything in the first day and now we're like kind of burnt out. And that's just the way it goes, right? But the planning piece is really where you can start to leverage the dopamine. And ultimately what it is what are you going to look forward to at the end of the day that will give you some dopamine that is going to get you through the day. It changes your state to even think about it, right? Like, oh, yeah, day's going kind of rough, but guess what? At 6 p.m., I'm going to be out in the forest with my wife and my dogs. And then I sit up a little bit straighter, my breathing changes, right? So, yeah, that's my initial contribution to what you've already said.
Yeah, the commitment versus the mood, right?
Yeah.
It really is. And our mind loves clarity. Like, give it direction. This is why we encourage, the journaling practices and the gratitude practices, but especially with really having a formulated action plan, utilize that digital calendar, put those things like if movement has been something that has been absent, let's say it's that daily walk, have it on there, do that walk no matter how you feel. We all have down days, alcohol use disorder or not. It doesn't matter, but it's, make sure you're giving yourself that space and remain committed to those actions because the results, they're not instant to the point you are making. It's going to accumulate over time to where that's how you build new rituals and routines. That's what we have to do. We have to create a life of greater value than that escapism that we gave ourselves through the consumption of alcohol. And when we say escapism, a lot of people always think the negative emotions. Like, no. Some folks, me, hand up, had a real challenge around embracing authentic joy and connection, and even being able to identify that. My capacity for joy was limited too. So when we're consuming something that gives us the false release, and most folks, they'll speak around stress. Well, guess what? That inability to embrace joy, be authentic, show up, maybe deal with a little bit of those insecurities and so on and social interactions, we're limiting all of that too. So it's just a total limiting of self. So the more we can remain committed, if it's that morning walk, that breath work, that meditation practice, if it's this morning, I just don't feel like it. Notice that it's, I don't feel.
Yeah.
Notice the feeling, accept the feeling, and move beyond the feeling. Because that's when some of these greatest natural dopamine hits and stronger neural pathways get created. It signals to the mind and the body, oh, I'm doing the work no matter what. Okay. And we start to get a greater capacity to embrace feelings, accept that we all have them. We're the feeler of our feelings, not ourselves, and we can move beyond them. It creates a greater level of resiliency. So commitment is just huge in any process in life.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you couldn't have said it better, right? It's like, I always, when people sign up for the program, I know not everybody can relate to this if you're not like you're in the gym all the time, but it's with exercise in general. We've all been there, or like nutrition or whatever. It's something to do with health and wellness, right? It's the rep, honestly, is showing up when you don't want to. Because if you act out of preference, right? That's what we were doing with alcohol. It's just like we were chasing a preference. We've masked it. We've disguised it as like I'm an adult. I get to do what I want to. This is my freedom. But the freedom is actually just a disguise. It's the preference becomes the prison, right? I'm going to do things when I choose to. But that's like, if anybody is listening to this, that's where the cognitive dissonance happens, because everybody in the community is a high performer, right? So you're telling me that you only show up to work when you want to, or you only parent when you want to? That's such bullshit. Excuse my language, but that's not how this goes, right? If you acted out of preference, you wouldn't have made anything of yourself, in personally or professionally. So why does alcohol get a free pass for that, right? Be honest with yourself. If you're going to act out of preference, the preference then just becomes your prison, and you claim that it's your freedom, but it's not, right? It's become this self-imposed prison that you've put yourself in for some of the reasons that you gave. It's just like you don't have that capacity, you haven't developed it yet, so seems safe, right, in the moment, because it alters your state, and I feel, it just spikes all your brain chemistry to the point you have this artificial idea that you're feeling connected or joy or whatnot, but it's not real, right? It's just an illusion, and then you feel twice as bad coming out the other side. So yeah, this whole thing, life in general, but especially when you're talking about what we're doing here with the alcohol-free journey, it literally is showing up when you don't want to, right? Yeah. That is where you make the growth. The growth is uncomfortable. Literally, it's one and the same. Discomfort equals growth. You cannot have growth without some level of discomfort. There's a learning curve, right? You can have some fun with it, right? Be like, yeah, you kind of laugh at yourself when you suck at something at the beginning, right? If I went to play this pickleball, everybody in the planet Earth plays pickleball. I haven't played it yet. So I'm going to suck when I go out there. You laugh at it a bit, right? And you pick it up, and you keep showing up, and you keep doing the thing, right? Is what it is. And so there's a lot of stubborn people in here. I mean, we were stubborn enough to not stop drinking. I know obviously there's other things at play, but still leverage that side of you. You're stubborn enough to, like, you've done very well in your career, in your business, whatever. You're stubborn enough to be in a 20-year relationship, and like, we're not going to give up, right? So you have to have that same mentality. Exactly what you're saying with this whole alcohol-free journey. Don't let alcohol off the hook just because of what it does to makes you feel good for 15 minutes, right? It's such a just outdated way to look at it.
Yeah. No, spot on, Matt. And I want people to take away too, what you're really breaking, most of all, is the comfort crisis of familiarity, right? This is even if you consciously don't understand it, it's like, this is the familiar action. It takes no energy. The mind and the body know it. Okay, we'll just keep doing that thing, regardless of consciously us going, this is uncomfortable. I don't like the way I'm showing up in life. I don't like life as is. We're going to have to move past that comfort zone. It's just how it is. And, where I want to close with on this is the importance of that building trust with yourself. The more reps and time that you accumulate over this of taking action with yourself, you build this internal trust. I know for me, in my alcohol-free journey was, near the end, saying that I'm not going to do that again in the morning, that I would do it again. I found that relationship with self was completely untrustworthy. I didn't believe a gosh dang word that I said to myself, let alone what I was putting out there in the world. I think people eventually, if I was going, yeah, no, I'm not drinking right now. It's why some of the response for many of us is like, yeah, okay. Like, we've displayed it enough. And then that's why we go into the dark hole by ourselves near the end of it, because, well, I want to go out there and be untrustworthy to the world. But no matter what, we're seeing it with ourselves. We're knowing that we're untrustworthy to ourselves.
Yes.
So doing the work, no matter how we feel, builds that internal trust and alignment. And when we can be in that place, that's an amazing feeling. I no longer have to have a good memory. And what I mean by it is what I tell someone, what I say, it's like, no, because what I say is true. It's fact.
Yeah.
So, again, do the work no matter how you feel. So any last thoughts, Matt?
No, just, what it's so funny that what brought it up is like that final comment you said is so often what is like one of the excuses. It's either I got this, is like I got this, right? The false sense is, or no one will know. But to your point, you'll know. The most important person in your life, you will know that you've done that, right? So like just what you were talking about with trust. is so bizarre that, that was one of the excuses, like, oh, we're off the hook because no one will know, right? But right? And to your just to kind of piggyback on what you were saying there at the end.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Matt. Appreciate you as
Appreciate
always. And thank you for listening to the podcast, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, whatever platform you're on. Please hit that subscribe button if you haven't, and leave us a rating and a review, especially on Apple Podcasts. Leave that 5-star and leave a comment with that rating as well. And if you are viewing us on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. Make sure you turn on the bell so you get alerts every time something is posted to the channel. And leave a comment in the comment section, maybe a question, or if there's a topic you'd like myself and Matt to cover on a future podcast. We do read them and take them into consideration when we pick a topic we're going to dive into. And if you're interested in starting your alcohol-free journey and you want to go a little bit deeper and be a part of our community, it's simple. Head on over to alcoholfreelifestyle.com and you can subscribe to the newsletter there and get some information as you continue to explore this. But if you know you're ready to commit and you have a deeper desire to join our Project 90 flagship program, we've got a dedicated number that you can request more information and have a conversation with our team member, Kai. Amazing guy. It's simple to do. Just text your name to 321-7764, and Kai will respond. He can organize a phone call. So again, text your name to Kai at 361-321-7764, and Kai will respond and support you.